And I appreciate you laying that out. One thing I'd like to add here to Desmond's perspective is, I mentioned to you this previously, the idea of property right violations and how
Yes.
I see this playing into mass psychoses historically. And I guess you could, the center of this thesis is really, if you want to drive people crazy, just keep changing the rules, right?
I think
And so,
my understanding is that there is good research to back that position from the type of people that are in Matthias's community. But further to your point, and we now, since our last talk, we now have the two case studies of the GoFundMe and Give, Send, Go actions on the part of the Canadian government, which but anybody who thinks about currency and ownership and value and international finance and the role of tech in the banking system, that has to be a wake-up call. Then now we have the position of Justin Trudeau that he's comfortable seizing bank accounts basically for infractions of free speech. I think that we've had this long simmering concern about the social credit, the logic behind the social credit system, and its potential socket with banking and capital. And then, as if that isn't enough for this particular dumpster fire, what I'm hearing from a variety of sources are projections of a major financial disruptive event on a fairly near-term horizon, coming from financial analysts and others, as the government has, I think, from your point of view, the printing of the money, a case can be made that that's actually direct theft from people who currently hold currency. So I think your concept here, and I'm reminded, someone pointed out to me the other day that Niccolo Machiavelli had specifically called out that if you really want to get the populace upset, what you do is you take their money.
yeah. Surprise, surprise, right? The most important tool in the sphere of human action. Take it away, people get upset. I do think it runs quite deep, actually, largely because I consider money to be a psychotechnology, or at least a hybrid psychotechnology, on par with something like literacy or numeracy. So you can imagine if someone came in and started changing the definitions of words, it would make communication very difficult.
Right.
And similarly, if we corrupt money, it makes economic communication very difficult. And as some of the, I guess, preconditions to this, you mentioned mass confusion being one of them, or a disruption of the sense-making apparatus. And for better or worse, money is the sense-making apparatus for a lot of our major decisions, right? What you're buying, what you're doing, where you're traveling, et cetera. It's a big part of it. So I'd like to read one more excerpt here. And this is something I wrote, and just to kind of set the stage for this, I wrote, a mass psychosis is an epidemic of delusion. It occurs when a large portion of society loses touch with reality and descends into madness. Like individual psychosis, a mass psychosis manifests when agents of action lose touch with their respective arenas of action. Although the causes of mass psychosis are multivariate, I assert that money, a critical psychotechnological extension of the human mind and the highest form of private property, is an instrumental touchstone for an integrated relationship between individual agents and their respective socioeconomic arenas of action. So, and we have historical examples of this, as you mentioned. The 1692 Salem witch trials were a mass psychosis, granted not a particularly massive mass psychosis, but psychosis nonetheless. What very few people understand is that, so the psychosis peaked in 1692, but from 1642 to 1690, there was a mass counterfeiting situation where basically the mint was established to try to fight counterfeiting, but then it was corrupted and it did some counterfeiting itself. So there's this, multi-decade experience of property right violations leading up to the burning of witches in the Salem witch trials. We have the 1933 rise of Hitler to power, and he rose from the ashes of the Weimar Republic hyperinflation in 1923.
Absolutely.
So in almost all instances, we have the counterfeiting of currency or fiat currency or property right violations more generally, leading to these psychotic episodes. And that makes sense that you said earlier that he, Desmond commented on an acceleration in the 20th century, because that's the century we had global centralized banking.